Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. Most people never learn. Your greatest asset is not your job, it's not your bank account, it's not your talent. Your greatest asset is your mind, because wherever your mind goes, your life follows. You see, success is not a money problem. It's not a resource problem. It's a thinking problem. Two people can read the same book, attend the same seminar, have access to the same opportunity, and end up with completely different results. Why? Because results don't come from information. Results come from interpretation. Your mind determines how you see opportunity, how you respond to pressure, and how you define your limits. And here's the truth most people don't like to hear. If you don't train your mind, it will be trained for you. By fear, by society, by past failure. That's why what you think repeatedly, you become eventually. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your thinking. That's why discipline beats motivation every single time. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is intentional. Motivation shows up when you feel good. Discipline shows up when it's inconvenient. And the people who win in life aren't more motivated than you. They're more mentally trained than you. They've trained their minds to act before they feel ready, to move before confidence shows up, to execute even when doubt is loud. And let me say this clearly. What you allow into your mind determines what comes out of your life. If you constantly consume negativity, you will produce limitation. If you constantly consume growth, you will produce expansion. Your mind is a factory, and every thought is either a product or a poison. That's why problems are not stop signs, they are signals. Signals that your thinking needs to grow to match your next level. Life doesn't give bigger problems to weaker people. Life gives bigger problems to people being prepared for more. And the only way to be prepared is to train daily, not once a year, not when life gets hard, daily, because mental training compounds, just like money. A small shift in thinking today creates massive transformation tomorrow. So if you want a different life, don't start with your circumstances. Start with your conversations. Start with your habits. Start with your thoughts. Because when your mind is trained, fear loses power, doubt loses control, and excuses lose credibility. Remember this. Your mind is your superpower. Train it daily, and your life will be forced to level up. Your mind determines your income, your impact, and your identity, whether you are aware of it or not. Long before money shows up in your bank account, it shows up in your belief system. Income is not produced by effort alone, it is produced by value perception. You will never be paid more than the value you believe you are capable of creating and communicating. Two people can work the same hours in the same industry with the same skills, yet earn completely different incomes. Not because one works harder, but because one thinks differently. The one who earns more has trained their mind to see problems as opportunities, to price their value instead of apologizing for it, and to move with confidence instead of hesitation. Your income is simply a reflection of the way you think about worth, opportunity, and responsibility. Your impact follows the same rule. Impact is not about how loud you speak, it's about how clearly you think. People who change lives do so because their minds have been conditioned to focus beyond themselves. When your thinking is small, your influence is small. When your thinking expands, your reach expands. The ideas you carry determine the lives you touch. A mind trained on fear will shrink back. A mind trained on purpose will step forward. Impact is born when your thoughts move from what do I get to who do I become and who do I serve. That shift alone can multiply your influence beyond anything talent could accomplish. And then there's identity, the most powerful of all. Your identity is not who you want to be, it's who your mind believes you already are. You don't act according to your potential, you act according to your self-image. If your mind sees you as limited, you will sabotage opportunities even when they show up. If your mind sees you as capable, disciplined, and valuable, you will rise to meet challenges without being asked. Identity shapes behavior, behavior shapes results, and results reinforce identity. It's a cycle, and it all begins in the mind. That's why changing your income without changing your mind never lasts. Changing your habits without changing your identity never sticks. Transformation doesn't start with external improvement, it starts with internal alignment. When your thinking evolves, your standards rise. When your standards rise, your actions change. When your actions change, your outcomes must follow. Your mind is writing the story of your life every single day. The question is not whether it's influencing your income, your impact, and your identity. The question is whether you are training it on purpose or letting it run on default. Because the moment you upgrade the way you think is the moment everything connected to you is forced to upgrade as well. What you think repeatedly, you become eventually, because repetition is a programmer and your mind is the code. Most people think their life is the result of luck or connections or circumstances. But if you really track it, your life is the result of your most consistent thoughts. Not your occasional thoughts, not your I had a good day thoughts, your consistent thoughts, the ones you keep rehearsing in your head when nobody's listening. Those thoughts are not just ideas floating around, they're instructions. And your brain doesn't treat repeated thoughts like opinions, it treats them like orders. That's why people don't just fall into confidence. Confidence is trained. It's built the same way fear is built, through repetition. If you repeatedly tell yourself, I'm not ready, your mind starts looking for evidence to support that statement. If you repeatedly tell yourself, I'm getting better every day, your mind starts searching for proof of progress. Your mind is a meaning-making machine. It will take your repeated thoughts and turn them into beliefs. And once something becomes a belief, it becomes a filter. You stop seeing the world as it is, you start seeing the world as you believe it is. And that filter determines your decisions. Your decisions determine your direction. Your direction determines your destination. So when you repeatedly think thoughts of limitation, you don't just feel limited, you behave limited, you hesitate, you avoid, you delay, you shrink, and then you call the results reality, when the truth is your results are just receipts. Receipts proving what you've been practicing mentally. On the other hand, when you repeatedly think thoughts of growth, your behavior shifts without you even realizing it. You start leaning in instead of backing away. You start taking action before you feel perfect. You start expecting to learn instead of expecting to fail. You become the kind of person who keeps moving, and life rewards movement. Here's what's happening beneath the surface. Your repeated thoughts become your emotional baseline. If you practice worry, worry becomes normal. If you practice gratitude, gratitude becomes normal. If you practice doubt, doubt becomes your default setting. If you practice courage, courage starts feeling natural. You don't rise to new levels by wishing. You rise by normalizing better thinking. And the scary part is that repetition doesn't care whether the thought is true. It only cares whether the thought is frequent. If you repeat a lie long enough, your mind will start building your identity around it. I'm not good at speaking. I'm not a leader. I can't be consistent. Say it enough times and your mind will stop arguing with you. It will start obeying you. Then you wake up one day living inside a sentence you kept repeating. So the real question becomes, what sentences are you living in? Because your life right now is full of evidence of what you've been thinking most often. If you think repeatedly about problems, you'll become a person who feels surrounded. If you think repeatedly about solutions, you'll become a person who sees openings. If you think repeatedly about what's missing, you'll become a person who lives in lack. If you think repeatedly about what's possible, you'll become a person who lives in motion. This is why daily mental training is not extra. It's not optional. It's maintenance. It's conditioning. It's leadership of your own mind. You can't afford to let random thoughts rent space in your head and then act surprised when your life becomes random. You become what you rehearse. You become what you repeat. You become what you refuse to release. And eventually isn't far away. Eventually is being built today. One thought at a time, one repeated belief at a time, one mental habit at a time. If you want it to become stronger, think strength until it feels familiar. If you want to become disciplined, think discipline until it becomes identity. You want to become successful. Think like a builder, think like a producer, think like a problem solver until that's who you are without trying. Because your future isn't created by your wishes, it's created by your repeated thoughts. Discipline is stronger than motivation because motivation is a feeling and feelings are unreliable. Motivation is like a visitor. Sometimes it shows up early, sometimes it shows up late. Sometimes it doesn't show up at all. And if your progress depends on a visitor, your progress will always be inconsistent. That's why people start strong and finish weak. They wait for a spark, a mood, a surge of energy, but life doesn't reward what you intend to do. Life rewards what you repeatedly do. Discipline is different. Discipline isn't a mood. Discipline is a decision. It's the ability to command yourself. It's self-leadership in real time. Discipline says, even if I don't feel like it, I do it anyway. That one sentence separates the people who dream from the people who build. Because the truth is, you will never feel like it consistently. You won't always feel like studying. You won't always feel like practicing. You won't always feel like waking up early, eating right, saving money, making the call, doing the workout, writing the page, posting the content, having the hard conversation. If you only do what you feel like doing, you will spend your life serving your emotions, and your emotions make a terrible boss. Discipline makes you effective even when your emotions are messy. It keeps you moving when your confidence is low. It keeps you building when your results are slow. Motivation can get you started, but discipline is what keeps you going long enough for momentum to show up. And here's something most people miss. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is protection. It protects your future from your current impulses. CTS your goals from your distractions. It protects your potential from your excuses. Discipline is the guard at the door of your destiny, checking everything that tries to enter. Laziness, comfort, procrastination, fear dressed up as waiting for the right time. Because comfort is a seductive liar. Comfort will tell you, do it tomorrow. Comfort will tell you, you deserve a break. Comfort will tell you, you can start again Monday. But comfort has a cost, and the cost is your growth. Discipline pays a different price. Discipline costs you comfort today, but it buys you freedom tomorrow. That's why disciplined people look lucky later. What you're calling luck is often just consistency you didn't see. It's the silent repetition. It's the private reps. It's the unglamorous work that nobody claps for. Discipline is the daily deposit that turns into a massive return. And the biggest reason discipline is stronger than motivation is because discipline changes your identity. Motivation says, I'll do it when I feel inspired. Discipline says, this is who I am. When it becomes identity, it becomes automatic. You don't negotiate with yourself. You don't debate. You don't overthink. You execute because it's normal for you. And when execution becomes normal, results become inevitable. Let me say it plainly. You don't need more motivation. You need more standards. Motivation asks, do I feel like it? Discipline asks, what does the person I'm becoming do next? That's a higher level of living. And once you understand this, you stop begging life for energy and you start building systems. You stop waiting for the mood and you start setting the schedule. You stop relying on inspiration and you start relying on structure. Because structure is what carries you when feelings don't. Discipline is not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. It's about returning to the path quickly. It's about doing the thing even when it's small, even when it's boring, even when the results are invisible. Because invisible results are still results in progress. Motivation is a match. It burns hot and dies fast. Discipline is a furnace. It burns steadily and it changes everything over time. And if you can train discipline daily, you will never have to chase motivation again. Because your progress won't depend on how you feel. Your progress will depend on who you decided to be. Input controls output, every time, without exception. Whatever consistently enters your mind will eventually express itself through your actions, your words, your habits, and your results. Your mind does not create in a vacuum. It reproduces what it consumes. Just like your body reflects what you eat. Your life reflects what you mentally digest. Most people are extremely careful about what they put into their bodies, yet completely careless about what they allow into their minds. They scroll without intention. They listen without discernment. They absorb opinions, fears, negativity, and distractions all day long and then wonder why their thinking feels foggy. Their confidence feels weak and their focus feels scattered. That's not a mystery. That's input at work. Your mind is always processing. Even when you think you're just watching or just listening, your subconscious is recording patterns. It records tone, it records language, it records emotional reactions. Over time, those patterns become default responses. You don't react to life randomly. You react based on what you've been feeding your mind. If you repeatedly feed your mind drama, it will crave chaos. If you repeatedly feed your mind fear, it will expect danger. If you repeatedly feed your mind excuses, it will find reasons to quit. But if you feed your mind discipline, it will look for structure. If you feed your mind growth, it will look for progress. If you feed your mind possibility, it will look for opportunity. This is why guarding your mind is not extreme. It's strategic. Because everything is not neutral. Some inputs weaken you even when they entertain you. Some conversations drain you even when they sound familiar. Some content numbs your ambition even when it makes you laugh. And the danger isn't the one-time exposure, it's the repetition. Repeated input shapes expectation, and expectation shapes behavior. Your output, your performance, your income, your relationships, your emotional stability is simply a report card of what you've been letting in. If your output feels inconsistent, it's not because you're incapable, it's because your inputs are conflicted. You're feeding your mind growth in the morning and poison at night. You're trying to build focus while consuming distraction. You're asking for confidence while listening to doubt. Your mind can't produce clarity if it's constantly fed confusion. That's why high performers are ruthless with their inputs. They choose what they listen to. They choose who they give access to their attention. They choose what they read, what they watch, and what they repeat to themselves. Not because they're better than anyone else, but because they understand leverage. They know 1 hour of the right input can shift weeks of output. And this includes self-talk. The most influential voice in your life is the one you hear all day long inside your own head. If you constantly criticize yourself, your mind will work against you. If you constantly speak life, direction, and expectation into yourself, your mind will start cooperating with your goals instead of sabotaging them. Guarding your mind doesn't mean avoiding reality. It means filtering it. It means deciding what strengthens you and what weakens you. It means understanding that access to your attention is a privilege, not a right. Because once something enters your mind repeatedly, it doesn't leave easily. It becomes part of how you see the world. And here's the payoff. When you control your inputs, your outputs become predictable. Focus becomes normal. Discipline becomes easier. Confidence becomes stable. You stop fighting yourself. You stop needing external validation. You move with clarity because your mind is no longer cluttered with noise. If you want a higher level of output, stop asking for more effort and start demanding better input. Guard what enters your mind, not out of fear, but out of respect for the life you're building. Problems are signals for growth, not stop signs, yet most people treat them like roadblocks instead of road signs. The moment a problem shows up, the average reaction is emotional, frustration, fear, overwhelm. And once emotion takes the wheel, progress slows down. But problems are not evidence that you're doing something wrong. Most of the time, they're evidence that you're doing something new. Problems show up when you're stretching beyond your current level of thinking, skill, or capacity. They are invitations to upgrade, not instructions to retreat. Every new level of life requires a new level of you. And problems are the gap between who you are now and who you're becoming. They expose limitations in thinking, systems, habits, or perspective. Not to embarrass you, but to educate you. If you didn't have the problem, you wouldn't know what needed to grow. That's why the people who succeed long term don't ask, why is this happening to me? They ask, what is this trying to teach me? That single question shifts you from victim to student. And students always advance. A stop sign says, you're not allowed to go any further. A signal says something. Needs your attention before you continue. L uses problems as signals. Sometimes the signal is about skill. You don't know enough yet. Sometimes it's about structure. Your system can't handle the level you're aiming for. Sometimes it's about mindset. The way you're thinking is too small for the result you want. But the problem itself is rarely the enemy. Avoiding the lesson is, most people don't fail because the problem is too big. They fail because they tried to solve a new level problem with old level thinking. They respond with panic instead of patience. They quit instead of recalibrating. They see resistance as rejection instead of refinement. Pressure doesn't destroy you, it reveals you. It shows you what you've been relying on. It exposes where you've been inconsistent. It highlights what you've been avoiding. And if you're willing to listen instead of react, problems become some of your greatest teachers. Think about it. Muscle only grows through resistance. Skill only sharpens through challenge. Character only develops under pressure. A life without problems wouldn't be peaceful, it would be stagnant. Growth demands friction. The danger isn't that problems exist. The danger is misinterpreting them. When you label a problem as a stop sign, you step back. When you label it as a signal, you lean in. You adjust your approach. You ask better questions. You strengthen what's weak instead of abandoning what matters. And here's the pattern you will start to notice. The closer you get to a breakthrough, the louder the problems become. Not because you're failing, but because you're approaching a threshold. Every level has a test, not to stop you, but to qualify you. Problems ask one question: are you willing to grow to get what you're asking for? When you answer that question with growth, problems lose their power to intimidate you. They become information, they become feedback, they become guidance. You stop personalizing resistance and start interpreting it. And once you see problems correctly, you stop fearing them. You stop asking for an easier path and start building stronger capacity. You realize that life isn't blocking your progress, it's shaping it. Problems don't mean turn around, they mean level up. And the moment you treat problems as signals for growth instead of stop signs, you stop living defensively and start living intentionally. Moving forward with clarity, resilience, and momentum, daily mental training creates unstoppable momentum because the mind responds to consistency before it responds to intensity. Most people wait for a breakthrough moment, a big realization, a surge of motivation, a life-changing event. But momentum doesn't come from dramatic moments. It comes from small, repeated mental reps done every single day. The mind is like a muscle. One intense workout doesn't transform the body, but daily training changes everything. In the same way, one good thought won't change your life, but a disciplined pattern of thinking will. When you train your mind daily, you stop starting over. That's the real power. Starting over is exhausting. It drains confidence. It makes progress feel fragile. Daily mental training creates continuity. Even on hard days, you don't lose ground, you maintain direction. And direction sustained over time turns into momentum. Momentum is not speed. Momentum is resistance to stopping. That's why disciplined thinkers don't quit when results are slow. Their minds are trained to expect process before payoff. They don't interpret delay as denial. They understand that unseen progress is still progress, while others are emotionally reacting to the absence of a media. Results, they're mentally reinforcing belief, focus, and execution. Daily mental training rewires your automatic responses. Instead of defaulting to doubt, you default to action. Instead of spiraling into overthinking, you shift into problem solving. Instead of waiting for clarity, you move with conviction. And once those responses become automatic, effort decreases while effectiveness increases. What you rehearse mentally determines how you respond under pressure. If you only think positively when things are going well, your mindset collapses the moment adversity shows up. But when you train daily, affirming direction, reviewing goals, sharpening perspective, and correcting self-talk, your mind stays steady even when circumstances aren't. That steadiness is what makes momentum unstoppable. Because momentum doesn't depend on how you feel. It depends on what you've conditioned yourself to do. Daily mental training also compounds confidence. Not surface level confidence, but grounded confidence. The kind that comes from knowing you are consistent. You trust yourself because you've proven repeatedly that you show up mentally even when you don't feel like it. That trust fuels action, and action fuels results. And here's the key most people miss. Momentum is fragile in the beginning, but powerful once established. Early on, it takes intention. It takes reminders. It takes effort. But once the mind is trained, momentum starts pulling you forward. Habits stack. Focus sharpens. Discipline becomes identity. You stop needing external pushes because internal alignment takes over. Daily mental training is what turns growth into a lifestyle instead of a phase. You're no longer dependent on circumstances being favorable. You create stability from the inside. You think clearly more often. You recover faster from setbacks. You stay in motion while others stall. And motion is everything because life rewards movement. Opportunities respond to action. Clarity comes from engagement, not waiting. When your mind is trained daily, quitting feels foreign. Excuses feel weak, and consistency feels normal. That's unstoppable momentum. Not because you're special, not because you're lucky, but because you trained your mind to keep going every single day. Let me leave you with this final thought. Everything you want in life, greater success, deeper confidence, stronger discipline, bigger impact, starts and ends in one place, your mind. Your income follows your thinking. Your identity follows your habits. Your future follows your focus. Nothing changes on the outside until something changes on the inside. If you don't train your mind, it will default to fear, comfort, and limitation. But when you train it daily, when you choose your thoughts, guard your inputs, embrace problems as growth signals, and discipline yourself even when motivation fades, you create momentum that cannot be stopped. Not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger. This isn't about perfection, it's about direction. It's about showing up mentally every day, even when no one is watching. Because small, consistent mental decisions shape massive outcomes over time. Remember this. Your mind is not just a tool, it is the engine. Train it daily, and it will carry you where talent alone never could. The moment you take control of your mind is the moment your life is forced to follow.